you have to ask for what you want.
Mm,
No one can interpret what you want. If you want something, you can't look if you want something you didn't ask for it, you can't look back and be frustrated that you didn't get it.
mm,
You have to just if you're entering into kind of a conversation where you have an expected outcome, you have to put it on the table and you have to be upfront with it and you have to say what you want to get out of it. And so it's been a very recent piece of advice, but it's been incredible too. I've really enjoyed in the last couple weeks just being like, hey, here's what I'm thinking right now. Here's what I would
mm,
like. Here's what I'm struggling with. Here's why you can help me. Here's what would be helpful if you would do it. Some people have said no. Some people have helped. Like it's been all over the board, but I'm not looking back on the interactions and saying, damn, I wish I would have spoken up. I wish I would have
mm.
asked for that. Um,
Welcome to 20s in Progress. I'm your host, Stephen Ha, and today we have a really good friend of mine. We met at work 3 years ago. We have a running joke between our friend group that we are co-workers, not friends. But no, Campbell was one of the first people that I met at my last company. I haven't told them yet where I work at, but yeah, I told them if I told them I would have to kill them. So, but yeah, Campbell and I met on the very first day of my old job, and we've been really good friends ever since. And I'm excited to bring Campbell on just because he has a unique experience of where he is in his life right now, and I think would be interesting just to hear more about how you view your 20s. But yeah, I won't speak too much for Campbell. Without further ado, Campbell Bloomfield.
Thank you. Should I give a little background on myself?
Yeah, that's the first question is like, where are you in your 20s? Like, how old are you? Where are you in your 20s?
25, smack in the middle of it right now. Um, am in my second city after college now, and I'm kind of navigating, restarting friendships, rekindling old friendships, just kind of navigating that whole process right now. But like Steven said, we met at work and lived in Atlanta for 3 years together, got pretty close. Then recently moved back to Roanoke, Virginia, where I'm originally from, have started my own company working with independent music venues, helping them forecast out their ticket sales, make better artist booking decisions. And it's been a journey. I mean, coming from very structured work balance or not balance, but it's very structured work uh, environment and that sort of thing. And then now jumping over and working on starting my own company, it's now all on me. I'm navigating that, trying to figure out what does motivation look like when it's not someone else imposing it on me. It's all on me. And if I don't do it, I have no one to report to. It's just like it doesn't get done. So yeah, navigating a lot of changes in the last few months. And so just kind of working through those and yeah, just
Yeah.
living.
No, let's stay there for a second. I personally know why, like your relation to this new company that you're starting on your own, and so but just for the viewers, like kind of what inspired the business, what is your relation to it, and kind of how did you come about this? I know it was on the background, it was like a long time coming, but just for a person just kind of fresh to it, what was that process like?
Yeah, so I've always been a huge music fan since I've been really little. Have then been playing music kind of on the side as a hobby for like 10 plus years now.
Ladies, if you're listening to this podcast, Campbell is not only single, but he plays multiple instruments. So if you like being serenaded to, Campbell is your guy.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. Appreciate the plug. But yeah, so I've always been a music fan, have always gone to shows and really gotten out into the live music community and started hearing rumblings that the independent sector was really struggling. So not the biggest names that you've heard of probably on the radio and things like that, but some of those more like local underground shows that are really like the backbone of the whole music economy, just started having really open conversations with them and starting to understand what the challenges were that they were facing. A bunch of things have come out of those conversations, but a big one has just been that there's not a lot of science behind why some of the booking decisions are made at that level. And probably rightfully so 10, 15 years ago, as some of the analytics tools and the ways that people approach problems were just fundamentally different. But now that we have these technological tools at our fingertips, it's trying to apply those into this music space that I care about so deeply. So yeah, it's really been an iterative process. This is not the first part of the idea. There were multiple movements
Remember?
of it and differences of it as I expanded the people that I talked to, incorporated different thoughts and opinions on it. And so it's been almost a year now of thinking through it, but really just in the last 2-3 months actually taking the leap and deciding that I want to do this kind of as potentially as my career.
So you kind of hit on this at the beginning. You're 25, and so why now? Like, what kind of spurred being 25 and making that jump? Like, how does it feel being a founder at 25, and why do you think this was the right time, if any, to make that jump from a structured, well-paying job, and just consistent paycheck where you kind of knew the game? Like, why take that risk now at 25?
Man, you're making me rethink it.
No, 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 no.
I'm joking. It was a lot of things. So always had kind of a North Star vision of wanting to start a company at some point. You know this, but in college, I attempted to start a company, and a kind of a lot of different things came into the reasons why it didn't happen. One of which was like, just didn't run through the customer discovery process and ended up building something that ultimately people didn't or like weren't interested in paying for, found interesting, but it wasn't going to be a viable business. So learned a lot from that process and then decided to go into a more structured career to get some of the maybe like life skills. And I say that I'm going to pull it back a little bit though, because I went into consulting and went into it not necessarily with like a ton of intentionality behind it. It was more so like people told me this was an awesome career. It was good money. Like it was just all of these things that on paper were like, oh, this is kind of the no-brainer decision. And quite frankly, like I didn't think twice about it after I made the decision to do it. It wasn't like I was like mulling over what are the pros and cons. I kind of just made the decision and then went. But so then this was a lot more of like, okay, weighing options. I was working for a nonprofit in Atlanta at the time, kind of had the option to go back to the company that you and I worked for, had another option potentially then to leave and do this. And so I had all of these different options, and it was very like, had to be more thought through because there were a lot of different options and a lot of different things I could do. And so I think it all just boiled down for me of like, when else? Like, when will be a better time to try it? Uh, if I if it doesn't work, like I'm not a failure. This just didn't work, and I can continue and go do something else. And so it kind of just came down to that. Like, this is something I've wanted to do. Why not now?
Yeah. No, I think that's super cool. And I guess the follow-up question to that is, for 20 something, for a person who's in their 20 somethings right now, whether they're in their early 20s, mid 20s like us, or late 20s, kind of like what's some advice or some things that you've gone through as you've kind of made that decision, that gone through that decision process, that you would give to someone who's like also equally as inspired and wanting to start their own thing, but maybe afraid to make that jump or something like that? Kind of like what helped you kind of come to that decision?
Well, I would say first of all, I think it's really easy to feel like alone in the like when you're at an inflection point, at a decision point. It's very easy to feel like, oh my God, I'm the only one that's dealing with this. Whatever feeling you're feeling, like if you're feeling that people will judge you for leaving a stable job and going and doing something else. If you're, in my case, before moving to this, going from a super stable, like maybe highly sought after job to working at a nonprofit, I definitely considered like some potential, I don't know, like people perceiving me different for doing that. So there was a lot of like stressful moments and stressful times. And maybe the only like salient piece of advice I would give is just like you will get through it. Like whatever it is you're going through, you will get through it if you just like show up every day and continue. Um, yeah, that's not like maybe the best like
Hey,
tangible piece of advice,
all good.
but at the same time, I feel like in those moments you can just really be so down on yourself, struggling so much to make a decision. And so maybe that just can help put it into perspective of like you'll get through whatever decision you decide. You'll figure out a way to make it.
Yeah, I smile because I think like it's not the sexiest of advice, right? I think like even if you think about my move to New York, like it was very similar. Like I was like everyone was like, "Are you crazy to just kind of move to New York out of nowhere?" Like, and I was like, I think that was the kind of mindset that I had too. Was like, I'm gonna figure it out. Like I think that is kind of what you're saying is a little bit of just like, hey, like it's gonna be okay, and you're gonna figure it out. And I think,
Well, wait, question for you.
yeah,
Was there any in your mind when you not necessarily the moving part, but the consideration of the job switch? Were there any fears in your mind? Like what was your kind of thought process, and was there any hesitation, or was it like, oh, this is like such a good opportunity, I can't pass it up?
I think in my mind, like when I decided to move to New York, one, I had already like I think I had told you that I was like, I'm gonna move to New York at some point. I just was looking for an excuse to move to New York.
Mhm.
And then I think the second thing was like at that point when I made the decision to leave Atlanta, like I was going through the stuff with my ex, and then a lot of our friends had left Atlanta at that point, and so it was just me, you, and like another one of our friends, Malcolm, and so like
Mhm.
I think we've talked about this, and I would love to get into this, like circle back to this. But Atlanta for me became, because I wasn't there often, I was traveling a lot, and like the value of Atlanta became really rooted in our friendship. And we've talked about this of like the friendship and the community that I built in Atlanta was what really kind of drove the value of Atlanta to me. And once I broke up with my ex, and then once, all of our friends started moving away, and then all of my like actual like my own personal friends started moving away, like Atlanta no longer felt like home to me. And
Right.
so by the time like I decided to go to New York, like everything just fell into place. And so like I don't think I ever second guessed it. Like there was no doubt, there was no second guessing. Like I think in my mind I was like, as soon as I get this like job offer where like I know that like I have to move to New York for, was kind of my excuse to just get the ball rolling. But like I think there was no fear because in my mind I was like, it's gonna work itself out. Like I think it fell into place so easily that everything kind of just felt like that. I was like, it's gonna work itself out, it's gonna be fine. Like I don't care how much money like it's gonna cost. I don't really care about the logistics. And like I think I talked about religion in my last episode. Believing that God has a plan for you like was really kind of my MO. And like I think like with that was like I might encounter some downs. I might but overall I knew that I was gonna figure it out at the end. So
Yeah, man. I don't know if you want to circle back to the friends
yes.
being like making it feel home. Like, can we talk about that now, or does that need to be late?
Yes.
Do you
No,
have?
let's talk about it now. Like I think I would love to ask about that because I think you and I have had very interesting conversations. And I think the macro kind of topic is that like you know, we're fresh out of college and we talked about this like making friends in college was so easy. Like you can walk outside of your dorm, you could be in your dorm and you can make friends so easily, and like finding community was super easy. You could like go to a house party at the end of the week or whatever. And so would love to kind of hear your perspective on like, what creating community looked like for you, and how much that meant to you during our time in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, first of all, for any of our friends that do end up listening to this, shout out to them because, like, very grateful to have made deep, lasting friendships in a place that I didn't necessarily recognize as being super hospitable when I first moved there. You know this, but like when I first moved to Atlanta, I was pretty down on it, partially because I was not in that headspace of building community. It was very much like I was frustrated with kind of maybe where I was and like, and some of the other things that were going on, but definitely felt like as it became more intentional of like, okay, I'm starting to see these people more and more. I'm drifting towards the people that I think I have some commonalities with. We're kind of similar in some way or another. It's not like we don't agree on every single thing,
We
but
do
it's like,
not.
okay, maybe you or someone and I found the same thing funny. Maybe someone and I like the same music. And it's like everyone's got like little pieces of each other that when we're all together it makes it feel like a great community. So maybe that was part of like when people were moving away and it was like we'd lose a arm or lose a hand on the body. It was like it just didn't feel the same. And so by the time about everybody left, it was like, all right, yeah, it's time to go. I'm going to.
And the funny thing is, like, it started off as a joke. Like, our friend group, and just for those who are listening, we have a group chat, and like because we work in consulting, like it was well known that like everyone's going to leave at some point, but it was like every year somebody left, or like one person left, but it was like slow, gradual leaving, and so we would make a new group chat. And it would be called like season 2, season 3, and then the picture of the group chat was the last person to leave, and it got to a point where the last kind of group chat was literally like 3 or 4 people. Like it was like very like sad. But yes, shout out to our friends. Like we've gone through a lot, and I think Atlanta itself wouldn't have been as special as it was, at least also to me, like given that. But I want to ask you about like kind of what was that shift like for you? Like you were talking about how, you weren't really focused on making community. Like what kind of started that shift? I don't think I ever asked you this. So like what kind of made you change your perspective on community and like putting importance into it?
It's a good question. And I think there were a couple things that were contributing to why I was struggling when I first moved there. One was obviously working a lot and just wasn't there physically very often. So I wasn't comfortable in the space, like just in Atlanta. I didn't know how to get places, didn't know what my places to even
Yeah.
go were. So just trying to figure all that out. But the community building piece, I think carrying over from college was definitely when I first moved there, still in that mindset of like the way that you socially bond with people is like drinking on Friday night, drinking on Saturday night, and then like watching football with people on Sunday, maybe. So it was like I had to get more creative and find more things to do with people and find the time to do things with people and like be intentional about that. Because I think, like you said, in college it was very like passive. You didn't have to maybe go out and try as hard to make friends. Then when you graduate, you realize that I actually have to work a little bit more at this. If I want to build a friendship with someone, I need to be reaching out to them and they need to be reaching out to me. It's got to be kind of two-way street in order to make that work. And so it takes energy, it takes time. And I've shared this with you before, but I'm not quick to like open up to people typically. So it also just there was a piece of that was just needed some time to like get to know people and be like, okay, do I trust you? Do I want to open up to you about stuff? Do I want to talk to you about anything more than surface level
I make that face. I made a face because I was like, I think what
things?
bonded you and I was we got close and like kind of like open pretty quickly, and I didn't know why. I don't think I ever told you this, but obviously going to Howard, like I've never really had like white friends. Like going to Howard and then growing up where I grew up, like I didn't have white friends, and so I think it was like we had hung out a couple of times, and I think that one day you called me and you were sharing something very personal. Like I think it hit me. I was like, wow, like we're really good friends. Like it's like something that like, and I think at that point I had also shared stuff with you about like, my relationship and things like that. And so I think that's why you felt comfortable to open up. But I think to your point, like making friends at 23 versus making friends at 20 or even 19 is very different, because it's like you have to put in that effort. And I remember even like driving when you like I was driving when you gave me that call, and I was like, holy cow, like he really sees me as a friend. And I think that was kind of the aha moment for me to be like, okay, like I need to pour into this friendship. Like I need to actually make an effort to create a friendship. I think at some point like it was like I had to even go as far as like calling it a friendship and saying, hey, like no, Campbell is a good friend of mine. And so like now when I refer to you, it's like, no, like Campbell's one of like my really good friends. Like this is somebody that like I'm really close to. But I think that is a lesson that a lot of 20 somethings like struggle with, especially in their early 20s post grad, is like, how do I find community? Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people get stopped at like, hey, like I'm waiting for somebody to reach out to me. I'm waiting for someone to make plans for me. But it's like, no, like it's super hard. If you really want to make friends, you have to be very intentional with reaching out, making efforts. And like, I'm not the best at it. we know in our friend group, like we're not the planners in the friend group, like, shout out Delara. But like I think it's like being intentional with just showing up for those people, is kind of how I would think about it. Were you gonna
Yeah,
say something?
two things on that. The first, I was reflecting on that earlier a little bit of like, why did I feel comfortable calling you in that sense or in that time? And I think it was just that like I recognized early on that you were a compassionate person. So it was like I didn't feel like I was at risk if I was opening up to you versus like
Yeah.
some other people I couldn't get a read on very quickly. Um but then the second piece I would love to ask you about, get your perspective. One of the things that I struggled with as well was balancing keeping up, like what level should I keep up with my friends that I grew up with, my friends then that I met at college, and then these new friends that I was meeting in Atlanta. I don't know if I did a great job of that, just like where it netted out, but would love to get your perspective on like how you approach that.
Yeah. First of all, I think you're the best responder out of our friend group for sure. Like hands down, like I think between the six of us, you are the best responder. Like I think you respond to anyone who texts in the group chat whenever you can. And so like I definitely think you do a great job of keeping up with your friends. I think for me, at least now, recently, to answer your question, like where I've been recently is that like people told me this growing up, but I didn't really understand it. It's like you have different friends for different seasons. And I think like you realize like sometimes you may need that friend a little bit more, right? Like, and like, I think a true friend doesn't need, like, especially if it's been communicated on both sides, like, you don't need to like talk all the time, or you don't need to like consistently pour into it as long as it's mutually agreed upon on like what the situation is. Like, I think, and so all that to say, like, there's different time periods that require different levels of effort with those friendships. Like I think you and I, like, when I moved to Midtown, like we hung out like at least like once every 2 weeks at least, and we'd go on walks or we'd hang out. And I think now, like in different stages of our life, like we probably talk, like catch up, like maybe try to like catch up once a month or something. Like obviously like it's only been 2 or 3 months since we moved. But like I think that is the cadence, but I think it doesn't change how close you and I are. Like I know like if I really need something, or like if you really need something, you just need a friend, a compassionate friend to talk to, like, I'll call you. Or like I have like a weird date and I'm like, I know for a fact Campbell can relate to this, like I'll call you, and like vice versa. And so I
Wait,
think,
why do I relate to that?
hey, it's not like a weird date. It's more so just like we can relate on the fact that we're both single men and have had
I'm
interesting
joking.
situations with dating in this time period, which is terrible.
Mhm.
But I think it's just like for another example is like my best friend, like my like closest friend. He admittedly will say he doesn't really like, he sucks at responding. Like he would disappear for like 2 weeks on end. But like I know that it's not personal, and like I know that like there's like a specific reason why he does that, and that he does that to everyone. And so like that doesn't change how close we are. Like that is literally like my best friend in the entire world. And like me 5 years ago would have been like, no, I have to talk to my friend every single day in order for us to be
Um,
friends. But now it's like, I don't want to talk to somebody every day unless it's like my girlfriend, and I don't have one like right now. So, but like, I don't really want to talk to anybody every day. And so it's like keeping that in mind. I think living in New York in particular has really kind of shaped my mind of like everyone has a different kind of like perspective and moment in life. And so you just kind of have to really reorient your mind of like the world does not revolve around you. And so you just have to keep that in mind as you like engage with your friends. But
yeah, I think that's totally fair.
speaking of our friend group, without kind of putting
You're
anyone
gonna
on
ask for
this,
who's your favorite?
well, no. What, and this is going to lead to another question, but speaking of our friend group, what would you say the biggest lessons, S's put in parentheses, that you've learned from our friend group over the last 3 years?
Ooh, dang. That's a really good question. I think maybe it's been the transition away from like needing alcohol to have fun. Like you can get in a room with people that you enjoy spending time with and have fun and stay up just as late and have just as much fun, but just completely sober and like laugh your ass off. And like I used to tell you all at the end of a night, like my face
Yeah.
like muscles hurt because I was like laughing so much or like smiling so much. And so I think that's been a big shift. Then I've taken it outside in my life as well. Have drinks here and again, but not drinking nearly to the level that I was earlier. And I think that a big part of that has been opening my eyes to being like, oh, there's like this whole world of having fun outside of needing to be drunk to do it.
Yeah. I think the key to that is like you have to find your people. I think the way you described our friend group is exactly how I also viewed our friendship group. Like I think obviously like Olivia and I have our thing with like High School Musical. Like we can like sing all the High School Musical songs together, and like and she's also a very compassionate individual, so we like relate on that way. I think you and I are just very similar in a lot of different ways, and so it's like, and like all of us have our own little like connections to each other, and I think together like we can literally watch a movie. We like remember that one night at Alex's where we like were playing the doing that like blind karaoke thing, and it
Yeah,
was just like genuine fun. Like, and I think we've done dinner nights, we've done game nights, and I think that is also kind of the underscore, like one of the like I guess like lessons that I've learned personally is just that when you're around the right people and you share the same things, that is kind of what leads to actual joy and happiness. And I think that is kind of, if you're looking for community or looking for friends, don't go searching for the places that you used to, or you're so used to
mm,
finding those same kind of people. But it's like be open to other things. And like it also kind of takes knowing yourself, right? Like it's like knowing like what you're interested in and being honest with it. I remember my therapist, and it's interesting enough that Campbell and I actually shared a therapist for a hot minute. Crystal, our therapist, actually told me one day, I was like, hey, I hate going out, but I feel like I can't find friends. But when I go out to like, clubs and lounges and bars, I don't have a good time, but I feel lonely. And the lesson that she told me was that, you know, maybe those are just not the spaces you need to be in. Like changing your format of like, oh, I don't like have fun when I go out. I feel super awkward. I feel like I need to like overly drink or something like that to actually have fun. And she was just like, what if that's not the place you need to be in? And so that has really kind of changed my perspective of like, if I don't want to go anywhere, I'm not going to go anywhere. But I think I'm also trying to find people that like board games, which is not our friend group because some people cheat and we will never play board games with certain
yeah.
people ever again. But no, like finding people who like board games, like finding people who like music, like just doing different things that really like brings you joy. But speaking of our therapists, feel free to disclose whatever you want or not. What was your kind of like path to therapy, and what was your experience like, and kind of just talk about that experience overall.
Yeah. I was telling my aunt this the other day, but I think I had like 3 or 4 therapists before I started having sessions with Crystal. And I just didn't like ever jive with them and it didn't really work. Like we had different personalities, we communicated in different ways. It was just like, and so I came to kind of resent therapy maybe a little bit, even though I knew that I wanted it, knew that I needed it. So I would go in and out and just like kind of drifted through it, but never really making very much progress. And then I went through like a really difficult time in my life where I had been like, I was confronted for the first time with like deep feelings of like, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this season of my life. Like, I don't see a world in which, or I don't see where this ends. It was just like the first time I was ever depressed, first time I was ever dealing with like major anxiety that was like seriously hindering my day-to-day life. And I think a lot of things came out of that. A lot more empathy for individuals that are struggling with that. I'm definitely still on a journey of like dealing with it and figuring out how do I live most effectively now with parts of it still kind of within my life. But I think therapy was an incredible tool of like just having to confront some of those things, knowing that I wanted to and knowing that I needed to, but not knowing how to do it. Having someone to put a little bit of structure behind that and like actually help kind of coax it out or listen for some of the more subliminal things that I was saying. I mean,
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it to anyone who has the ability or means to do it. I would
Yeah.
highly recommend it.
No, for sure. And I would want to touch on the part where you said you tried a couple of different therapists and you then landed before you landed on Crystal. And there's a couple of things that I want to like kind of ask your perspective on. Is that's oftentimes a misconception about why a lot of people drop off of therapy is like finding the right person. And I think the second thing is like sometimes people find like they have to look for a therapist that like looks like them or is them to like really kind of resonate. And the reason why I bring it up is because Crystal, for those of you who are listening, is a black woman from the South, and Campbell is a white man from Virginia. And so on paper, they should have not really made sense in terms of your traditional or what stereotypically would be a match in terms of therapy. So kind of talk about that. Like why, what kind of when you say you didn't connect with the first four therapists, what was it? What made you kind of wanting to try to find somebody that connected? And what about Crystal kind of like really helped you connect to her, even though like on paper you guys like don't really make sense?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. I've reflected on this before. I'm actually not sure what specifically about some of the other therapists like just didn't work, but it just didn't work. Like we didn't get through to each other. It seemed like what they would say was like disingenuous or didn't maybe have my best interest in mind all the time, things like that. What Crystal was able to do was like deeply fundamentally challenge the way that I was thinking about things in a way that was compassionate, in a way that was not judgmental. And so just was able to strip away some of the like superficial stuff that you bring every day. Like in every interaction, you just have kind of a wall up, a little bit of just what am I exuding? What do I want people to perceive about me? Kind of that type of stuff. And so she was just really, really good at very quickly like breaking that down and getting into the thought processes and like how did you get here? Where are you right now? Just all of these things that challenging me to think about things in ways that I hadn't ever thought of, but in a loving, compassionate, I see you, I hear you way that I hadn't experienced before. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned a
No,
lot from it. How would you?
yeah, I feel the same. I would say like I've gone through a multiple therapists along my therapy journey. My therapy journey started my freshman year of college. My mentor at the time was like, you have to go get like you have to go sign up for on-campus therapy and like I will ban because he was the SGA president and I was his intern and he was like I ban you from like being in this office until you go get therapy. And like I was like, whoa, like is it that serious? Like I was like so mad at him, and I was like, and then he knew that that was gonna hurt me because like I was there all the time. Like I was all like if I wasn't in class, like I was in the office, just kind of like being there as the intern. And so I went to therapy, and my first therapist was an Asian woman during her doctorate intern at Howard. And the only reason why, and I to this day I believe like the only reason why they like gave me her was because I was like, an Asian and they were like, hey, Asian, let's do it. And like she was like a international student and like she like and like not to say anything bad against her, but it was just like it was so hard to connect to her. Like I was like talking to her about the things that I was going through and it was just we didn't really connect. And so like similar story, like I like one therapist and then like I didn't stop seeing them. And then during my time in Atlanta, I tried different therapists, but like for me, the way I found Crystal was I knew I needed therapy. I tried different therapists, but I just couldn't find a schedule that worked. And Crystal
Mm.
was the only person at the time that I knew that did therapy on the weekends. And as a former consultant, you know, and I guess I'm in between former consultant and current consultant, our weekends were the only time we could actually schedule like any appointments. And anyone, for those of you who are entering your 20s, like scheduling doctor's appointments and working a full-time job is the hardest thing
Right.
ever, especially when your job doesn't really make it for so easy for you to be able to take off during the week because doctors' offices are only open Monday through Friday. And so when we're talking about therapy appointments, it's like we have to find a way to fit an hour of therapy during a busy week when our calendars were booked basically from 9 to 5 in terms of meetings. And so like we couldn't really find time.
Dude, and that's another, I mean, that is a contributing factor, I'm sure. And I didn't really think about this, but why I didn't maybe get much from those first couple therapists, I tried to juggle it within the work schedule. So I would be like in between two calls, like jump over, try to do therapy in the middle of like a Tuesday. And I like just wasn't, I had half of mine, I was getting Slack messages while I was on the call. Like it was just, so maybe there were just environmental factors too that all just kind of bubbled up and made it so it didn't work. But
Yeah. I think there's also a misnomer, right? Like it's a weird thing. Like I can say, hey, I broke my arm, so I need to go to like the orthopedic to like look at it. But like it's harder to say to your manager, hey, I need to go get like a therapist. Like I need to go see a mental health therapist because I'm going through, because there's like a lot of misnomers of like, oh, like am I working them too hard, or like can they take, the things that I can take, and like, being in a high intense pressure like job, you don't really want to show weakness. And I think that's like really bad, right? I think it's like we've talked about, you and I, of like, there's like a toxic masculinity aspect to it when you are a male, but also on top of that, it's just like in these high intense pressure jobs, like you cannot show weakness. And it's like a really sad thing, because that's partially the reason why we end up going to therapy in the first place, is that like we have all these things bottled up inside. And so I genuinely hope that like what someone can get from this is that like, whether whatever you're going through, like everyone needs therapy. We literally talked about therapy in my last episode. So it's like, I think by this point, if you're listening to the second podcast, third episode of this podcast, like go get therapy. Like everyone can use therapy in some shape or form.
and I would also say I would add on to that too, like if it's prohibitive for you to get therapy too, like I think the biggest struggle I had when I was going through my like very anxious, depressed time was like I didn't want to burden anyone else with my things that I was dealing with. And so not this is not saying use your friends as a therapist, but like tell people about where you are genuinely, especially the people that you're close to, and they will be receptive to it and they'll help you through it and they'll talk to you and you will have never known maybe that someone else went through a very difficult time just like you unless you open up, and it makes you then feel better too because you're like, okay, good, like I'm not going about this alone, I'm not trying to fight this alone anymore. But that was something that I struggle with a lot.
No, for sure. I mean, I think a couple thoughts to that is like, that is a misconception that like really kind of, perpetuates the cycle of anxiety and depression, is that you oftentimes feel like you're the only person that's going through what you're going through. I think that's honestly what kind of sparked and inspired this podcast. I think you and I even had like multiple conversations of what I wanted this podcast to be. I remember one time we were walking into State Farm and we're like talking, like we're
Mm.
walking up the stairs. I was like, hey, like I really want to do this podcast. But I think what really kind of resonated across the different concepts of this podcast was that like I really wanted a platform to really show people in some shape or form that they're not alone, right? Like I think any 20 something year old that's listening to this can really resonate with some of the things that we're saying. Is like, hey, like have you ever felt alone? Have you ever felt depressed? Have you ever felt like, it was hard to make friends post grad? Like, and I think what I'm hoping for our generation and our society moving forward is that we find more opportunities and avenues to create spaces for people to like feel like they're not alone. Because I think truly, like to your point, like when I was going through my breakup, like leaning on you guys, our friend group, was like huge for me. Like I remember like, Delara pulling up with some ice cream the next day from Costco, like, and just kind of sitting with me. And I was just like I didn't know how to feel, but I think looking back on it, it was like, dang, like I didn't feel alone. Like that's the very least, right? Like, and so the fact of the matter is like there's 7.6 billion people in the world. There's no reason for you to be alone unless it's like positive for you. And so find your people and find people that care about you. Zooming out a little bit, my question for you is not just occurred to me. Um, my friend from my last podcast, we talked about how we started our 20s in COVID. Has that affected you at all in terms of like, as we talk about feeling lonely? And like, I think something that I've kind of started noticing about a lot of people our age in particular is that, like, they talk about the COVID babies who like went through high school
Uh,
during COVID. We kind of experienced college through COVID. Like the same way we give them a lot of slack, like I think we've also inherently kind of developed some type of like social anxiety where we're a little bit more likely to, at least for me personally, like I've developed social anxiety for sure of like not wanting to be around large crowds of people, not wanting to be like more open. Like I used to talk to strangers, no problem, but now I'm like I don't like, especially in New York, I get overstimulated all the time, and
yeah.
so like for you starting such a pivotal, you know, decade in your life, has that affected you at all? And kind of, you know, what is that? How's that played out for you? And have you worked through it? And how did you work through it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you and I have ever talked about this, and maybe I'm just a contrarian in this sense, but like COVID for me was a very incredibly powerful time for myself. Coming from a large family, I did not ever have much structured time for myself. I was like constantly either at school, in sports, or with family. And so there was not very much downtime where I could kind of explore what my interests were, spend time just reflecting and being alone. And so COVID for me was actually very powerful where I had to be intentional to step out and take time for myself. And so I really discovered that I loved hiking, loved being in nature, loved just frankly like realized that I needed more time alone than I had thought, and not necessarily just like laying on my phone, like scrolling time alone, but like actually intentional carve out a day and go do something by myself or just go hole up and read a book for a couple hours or something. Like just during that time was a very, I think, instrumental realization that like I was constantly doing everything with people and didn't feel comfortable doing anything alone. And so it pushed me and forced me to be comfortable being alone a little bit.
Hmm.
I think it was also reinforced by the fact that I moved to Charlotte and lived in Charlotte by myself and worked at a very small company. So I didn't like make a whole lot of friends at that time. And so instead of maybe one side of me could have seen that as like, this is like drawing me away from people. I think I took it and thought about it as like, okay, well, I just know now that moving forward, I just need intentional time to reset. And
Hmm.
it's not that being with people is bad, but it's just like I have time for that. And then I have to make time to do stuff by myself. And so it sounded like you had maybe a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think it's similar, right? Like, I think, like, I thought COVID was a very pivotal moment for me as well. Like, I think I used to be a very social person. Like, I think, I always wanted to be around people. Like I couldn't go to the store without going with somebody, and like, and even now, like I struggle with it. But I think COVID was the first time for me, especially because I was like, I went through kind of like a somewhat traumatic experience, like at the beginning of COVID, where like I kind of lost all my friends, and I really like, even if I did want to just scroll on my phone, like I didn't have anyone to talk to. I wasn't like on FaceTime with people all the time. Like I was just kind of like, it was me, DDG on YouTube, and who else did I watch on YouTube at that time? Like it was just like me and I watched like every single DDG episode, like or like YouTube video, and like and so, but I think what that did for me was like I remember just sitting sometimes like in my garage and like just staring out at the sky and just kind of like embracing being alone. And I think I kind of swung too much on the other side where I was like coming out of COVID, I was like, oh, like I don't want to be with anyone. Like I actually love being alone, and that's when I met my ex, now ex, and like I remember telling her when I first met her, I was like, I was fully prepared, and you know me, like I'm a certified lover boy at heart. Like I was fully prepared at that point when I met her, where like because of COVID, where I was like, I enjoy being alone so much that I don't want to be around people ever again. And so I think I
Whoa.
swung so much on the other end where I was like, I don't want to be around people. And my ex fortunately got me like kind of out of that box. And even like, I don't know if I ever told you this, but like she was the one that was like, no, like why are you so afraid to call Campbell or like Jasmine like your friends? And I was like, dang, like, and she was
Uh,
very instrumental in like encouraging me to like kind of get back out there. But yeah, COVID was like instrumental for me as well. Like obviously like respect to all the people that like passed away and got sick from it and things like that. But I think the alone time that it created was actually very pivotal. Staying in this kind of time period, though, would love to kind of know if you could go back 5 years, soon to be 6 years, what would you tell Campbell at 20?
Dang, dude, that's tough. I don't know. Because that gets to a philosophical, and I've had this conversation with other people. I'm not sure if you and I have, but like realistically, I don't know if I would want to have had any other information or like have
Hmm.
known anything, because then it would be a fundamentally like whole different reality that I'm living in now if
Hmm.
I would have known some of this stuff. So like I think that, like, have I made mistakes? I'm sure. But at the same time, I don't know if I would definitely change anything. Just because it would change, because everything that seems like is so bad in the moment, then I feel like you give it some time and you think about it a couple months, couple weeks later, and it's like, oh, well, that fundamentally shifted who I am today and made me either better for it or just more knowledgeable for it. So I don't know. Like that would be like I might need to think for a couple weeks to give you a better answer on that. But
I'm gonna
that's my philosophical.
I'm gonna circle back with you on that
Okay.
corporate speak in like a couple weeks. I want to know what your answer will be. A more lighthearted question is kind of to wrap things up a little bit is if you can give a 20s tip, like if there's one lesson that your 20s have taught you so far, what would be your 20s tip to a 20 something year old that's listening to this?
I like how you incorporated 20-something-year-old.
I've been really trying to really find a way to like really just enforce 20 somethings. Because wait, before we like skip and you answer the question, like when we talk about like finding friends that genuinely like care about you and like is like that you need in your circle, Campbell behind the scenes like is one of the friends that I know I can count on where he's a very compassionate individual as well, which is why we connect. But I also know Campbell's gonna keep it real. Like I like at the first, I texted Campbell when we were kind of planning for this episode, and I was like, "Hey, did you watch the first episode?" And Campbell, being the former consultant that he is, was very straightforward. He was just like, "Yo, like you can't keep saying 20-year-olds because it sounds like you're talking to someone like like a youngin." And I was like, you know what? Like that's actually right. So if you hear the change in the language from 20s to 20 somethings, shout out Campbell Bloomfield.
Hey, I also said it was a good episode though. I didn't just
No,
critique
no,
it.
fair. Yes.
Okay, but back to to the question you asked. I'm gonna go with one that a piece of advice that I just got like a week and a half ago, but I've been trying very hard to implement like in every interaction that I have now. And someone just told me you have to ask for what you want. No one can interpret what you want. If you want something, you can't look and you if you want something you didn't ask for it, you can't look back and be frustrated that you didn't get it.
Mm,
You have to just enter if you're entering into kind of a conversation where you have an expected outcome, you have to put it on the table and you have to be upfront with it and you have to say what you want to get out of it. And so it's been a very recent piece of advice, but it's been incredible too. I've really enjoyed in the last couple weeks just being like, hey, here's what I'm thinking right now. Here's what I would
mm,
like. Here's what I'm struggling with. Here's why you can help me. Here's what would be helpful if you would do it. Some people have said no. Some people have helped. Like it's been it's been all over the board, but I'm not looking back on the interactions and saying, "Damn, I wish I would have spoken up. I wish I would have
mm.
asked for that." So yeah, that's and maybe give me a couple more months of trying and see whether it's netted out right. But I really liked that. It's just like to the point advice, not that difficult to implement if you just try it a couple times. And you can just throw it out if it doesn't work.
For sure. Closed mouths don't get fed. Then that's the hard lesson is like but like I think the key to that is knowing what you want and being in tune with yourself, which is kind of where the therapy comes in, is like you don't know what you want, you don't know what you're thinking unless you actually spend time thinking about yourself. And I think that is probably the perfect way to sum up this episode is just like, hey, like if you like to get where you want to go, you have to be able to vocalize to what you just said of like where you want to be and what you want out of the future. But to get there, and actually, right before I came here, my friend from work now was showing me this quote from Jalen Hurts, and he said to in life you have to move forward, but you learn by looking backwards. And it was
Mm,
like you have to go forward and you have to know where you want to go. But in order for you to kind of like do that, you have to kind of look backwards and kind of really like reflect and think about where you've been, in order to really like understand what you want and kind of what your future looks like and what you want out of the future. And so that's kind of where therapy comes in. That's where like talking to your friends comes in and things like that. And so, for those of you who are listening, go get therapy, be direct with what you want. Any last words from you?
can I give a second piece of advice that I've heard?
Yeah.
I heard it further in the past, but maybe a year ago, a good friend from, like, this is a long time friend. I've probably known her since like high school. I don't know. We were texting and she sent me a podcast, and the host of the podcast said something to the tune of, there are no right or wrong decisions. You just have to make one. The only wrong decision is not making a decision. And so that's been another thing that I've been trying to implement, of like, yes, evaluate the pros and cons. Yes, think through decisions, but then make sure you make one, and don't get to the point where you don't make one and then you get burned for it. Because I feel like that's the only time you can get punished. Like Jalen Hurts was saying, like, you can look back on a decision that you thought was wrong and then be able to say, oh, well, okay, now I know that that was the wrong decision and I'm not going to make that mistake again. But you wouldn't have known that unless you made it.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk, but this could be its own separate episode because I think that's kind of what like when we're at consulting, like they actually told you to like fail fast and fail hard, and so it's
Yeah.
like that is like, and I've taken that and applied that to my everyday life of like, you know, the faster I fail, the quicker I learn, and the quicker I'm able to not make the same mistake twice. And I agree with you. Like I've just been able to just like making decisions, and that's partially the reason why like what inspired the move to New York. I was like even if this is a failure, like at least I know like New York was not it for me. I think something else like that, just what you just said popped in my mind, was like my first ever real therapist that I had, like the one that I really connected with. She like I also had a lot of anxiety around making decisions. Like I like told her like I suck at making decisions, and she was like gave me two pieces of advice. The first one was saying count to 10 and make a decision
Mm,
at 10. And she was just like,
hmm
go through your entire spiral of like, what about this? What about this? What about that? What if I do this and all that, and count to 10 and just make a decision. And then just know that like, you can learn from that after the afterward, and like but you have to make a decision. I think the second advice is like for those people who like have anxiety over decisions, and I think I said that in my first episode, is like 20s is decision paralysis, like you have to make decisions all the time. Is like oftentimes when we get anxiety, we always think about like the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. But I think what she really like kind of like, and we think of it in a very black and white way where it's like it's only the best or the worst. But then she was like, what really happens in life is like you take the best case scenario and you take the worst case scenario, and what happens is life is the gray area in between. And like that for me really resonated with me. And I got that advice when I was like 19, and that kind of like anytime I feel myself like overly anxious about making a decision, like I think about the worst case scenario, I think about the best case scenario. I'm like, yeah, am I going to marry the girl? No, but am I going to get embarrassed on live TV? No. Like, well, it's probably gonna end up happening somewhere in between where like I like learn the lesson that I need to learn. So yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. Before we sign off, would love for you to just kind of shout out your company one last time. I'm super excited about kind of the work that you're doing, and anything you want to kind of say about that, the kind of future or anything like that. Would love to kind of use a little bit of time just for you to like do some self promo. I think it's really cool work, and I think it's impactful work, but I also think it's passionate work. So definitely want to give you the opportunity to highlight that.
yeah. So the company's called the Music Advocacy Project. If anyone's listening has connections in the music and in the live music industry specifically, so any venue owners, agencies, promoters, we are in this alpha testing piloting stage right now. So any and all support, any and all connections, is incredibly helpful. Yeah, we're looking to commercialize it and really have kind of a product built, tested, and push it out early next year. So would love any support. If anyone has any of those connections, would love to connect and chat about it.
Yeah, I'm super proud of you, dude. Thank you for Campbell for joining our podcast today. I think it was a really good conversation. Also, just always good catching up with you. Good luck with the Music Advocacy Project. I'm super proud of you. I think it's going to go well just because of the person who you are. Miss you, dude. And yeah, thank you all for listening. 20s in progress, as I've stated in the other episodes, we'll drop a new episode every single Saturday with a different 20 something year old in someone in their 20s and with a different tune, a different topic, a different thing that they're going through. And so subscribe. Full episodes will be on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And we'll have clips on Instagram and TikTok for those of you who just want reminders to watch episodes. So thank you again for listening. Thank you, Campbell. Peace out. Love you all.